1. This happened 2 years ago, in my high school junior year. I was the kind of student who would take honors and AP everything, waste of my goddamn time by the way, and I was taking accelerated pre-calc so I could get into AP Calc BC the next year. It was around September, November. It's the beginning of the school year when a new kid, Corbin, randomly shows up sitting in the back of my math class. At the time, the seating arrangement sat me near him, so I thought, let's be nice to the new guy, and started to just acknowledge his presence. He would ask me questions, I would politely answer, etc. Nothing special. But no one else was really doing it at the time. He wasn't the type to be immediately popular the second you moved schools, and he had that classic pudgy, short nerd look to him. Glasses, neckbeard, a rotation of 3 shirts, so I felt bad. I was never one to make friends, wasn't popular, wasn't that good looking. Depression made me gross AF, so I felt empathetic. Turns out we shared another class, AP US History. This time Corbin sat directly in my table group. We would have to interact more in that class, so maybe he started to see me as a friendly face. I mean, being a new kid is hard, especially when everyone else has known each other for most of their lives. But that's where the problem is. I don't know what about me gave him the impression that he could confide in me about his love interests. But after a week or two, that's what Corbin started to do. At first, it wasn't too sus. It was saying things like, "Wow, math class is so great. WTF. And Ms. Edgar, our math teacher, is such a great teacher." Like, yeah, okay. Things like that are normal to hear when you're sitting in a class full of AP nuts that want to go to Ivy League schools and become the next Stephen Hawking or whatever the fuck. But then he started really wanting to know more about Ms. Edgar, asking things like, "Is Ms. Edgar married?" Yes, but we all just called her Ms. "And does she have kids?" Yes, her picture is literally right there. And then he kept saying things like, "I want to have all 6 periods of the day be math," and, "I don't want to leave math. Why is it such a short period?" At this point, I would try to stay away from Corbin. I wouldn't talk to him. I wouldn't look at him, giving signals of, "Ew, please go away," because I just had some sort of gut feeling that he liked a lot more than just math. I would literally run from our math classroom the minute the bell rang, in an effort to keep him from catching up to me. He would still fucking find me and say these things. I have never power walked so hard in my life, and he still somehow caught up. Impressive in a way. In my history class, we eventually had to do a group project as a table group. It was me, Corbin, and 2 other girls. We had to draw some sort of poster about the Civil War, and I was in charge of drawing most of it because for most of my life everyone knew me as the girl who can draw. I've gone to art school for 8 years, been traditionally taught. I had to draw some sort of southerner-looking guy, and I guess to him it looked like Joseph Joestar? Like the anime character from the Stardust Crusaders arc? First of all, ew. Not ew to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but ew to the fact that I just got my years of art practice whittled down to looking like an anime character. But whatever, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that Corbin would not let that go. Instead of, doing actual work and helping on the poster, all he would do for the rest of the class was just make JJBA sound effects like WTF. The other 2 girls and I would just look at each other and then go back to doing our work, trying not to give him the attention he so clearly wanted. He would always try to crack jokes, to no avail, when watching documentaries in US history class, so it was nothing new. He would actually repeat his jokes numerous times, but even the teacher wouldn't give him the time of day. But the poster thing was so painful that I actually stopped liking JJBA for a while, only started getting back into it now, just because he was so cringy. But that's neither here nor there, back to the main part. I eventually got sick and tired of Corbin's BS. I decided to email both Ms. Edgar and my AP history teacher saying that I wanted to be moved as far away from him as possible in class, and have them make sure the future seating charts would reflect that. I didn't go into details as to why I felt so uncomfortable, because what was I supposed to say? And the teachers didn't ask any questions. So I got my wish, and got moved to literally the opposite corners. He was in the front left corner, I was in the back right, yada yada. I would catch him staring at me a lot, but he stopped talking to me after that. Thank the goddamn Lord, right? Then I found something that made me feel bad for Ms. Edgar herself. Sometimes when I missed class, I would go in after to make up notes or take quizzes, and I noticed he was always there. During lunch, after school, he was always just sitting there. Corbin didn't have to make up anything, he just wanted to really spend his day with Ms. Edgar. And it was every day. Other kids would see him when they went in to make something up. Every day. But I would try to rationalize all this. Obviously he didn't have many friends, being new and all, so maybe he wanted to not sit alone during lunch. Or maybe just wait a little in the classroom before his mom came to pick him up after school. And maybe Ms. Edgar is the only teacher he feels comfortable around. Then suddenly it's Valentine's Day. For me, not a special day, never been a special day, never will be. Just a regular, normal-ass day. I had missed class the day before, yes, I'm a serial skipper if you haven't noticed, and went in after school to make up a math test. Oops. Surprise, you know who is in there, giving Ms. Edgar motherfucking cookies, saying he wanted to do something special for a special someone like her and whatnot. Some poetic lovey-dovey bull. Ms. Edgar accepts it, which, I would personally decline, since I found a black hair baked in the cookies he had brought for a math potluck once. Spoilers, he's blonde, with a slightly forced, "Oh, thanks," and he finally leaves. I take my test, don't remember if I did any good, but right as I was about to walk out the door, Ms. Edgar asks, "Can I actually talk to you for a second, OP?" I'm like, WTF can this be about? I thought I was in some sort of trouble, missing all that class or something, but it turns out she wanted to ask about Corbin. She goes, "OP, I know you didn't want to talk about why you were uncomfortable with Corbin, but I was wondering if there's anything you can tell me." I was like, oh, thank God she noticed. And so I finally spilled the beans about how weird he was, how he seems to be infatuated with her, and how I thought she was oblivious to it all this time. Ms. Edgar tells me that she knew, and that she just has to put up with it for the rest of the year. Unless he takes AP Calc BC, in which she is the only one who teaches, because what is there to do? He thanks me for talking with her, and the year progressed with a less amount of weirdness. I eventually started to tell other people about my interactions with Corbin. Not for the sake of gossip, but because I wanted to warn people, especially the girls he tended to hover around. He would always just go up to a pair of girls and stand in between them, just watching them talk to each other, not even engage in their conversation, just watching. That's when I found out other girls have had similar sus interactions with this kid. How he kept trying the whole, "What if we kissed? Joke! Unless," line multiple times on multiple girls, and how he harassed this one particular girl that I guess he liked, over text, etc. One trend of his is that he would really take interest only in Asian girls, so he probably had some sort of yellow fever situation going on too. Junior year ended with no further bumps, and when senior year started, I walk into school and don't see Corbin anywhere. He's not in my classes or any other AP class, which is weird because he'd probably take it. Turns out he moved back to where he came from over the summer. As for me, I missed more school than I'd like to admit. I'm always one for pushing the attendance limit, but still graduated in the top 5% of my class out of 560 students. See, kids, it's possible, but just don't quote me on it. Now I'm in college, living my best life, and out of that hick town for good. As for Corbin, you better not see me again. 2. This happened my first year at uni, Australia. I was moving out of home for the first time, and I think this made me very, very naive in this situation. 20, female. I found a cheap place in the city near my workplace and uni at the time. $150 per week for a room in a shared house only 20 minutes out from the CBD. It seemed like an awesome deal to me. I messaged the landlord and told her I was interested. Before she gave me a time to come and inspect the place, she seemed overly interested in my ethnic background. I'm half Ethiopian, so I definitely don't look white. But when I told her I am Australian, she suddenly became withdrawn. I thought it was strange. Maybe she thought I was lying because she had seen my profile photo on flatmates.com. So I explained my background. She seemed satisfied with my answer, and we organized a time for me to come see the room. I will call the landlord Denise. Denise showed me around and talked as if the place was already mine, which I thought was exciting. There was a main house with 5 bedrooms, a caravan on the side, and a granny flat behind it with 3 bedrooms, which is where I would be moving in. The main house and caravan were full, 7 people living there, but only one of the bedrooms in the granny flat was occupied. It was nice enough considering, and very clean. A weekly cleaner was included in the rent price, as well as weekly maintenance. I didn't think to ask what that meant because I was already pretty set on moving in. I met the people who would go on to be my housemates. All of them were foreigners, mostly Chinese or South Korean, who had come to study. I still didn't find this odd. I mean, there are plenty of international students here. The door to my room had a lock on it, and I was told only myself and Denise had a key. But Denise never usually came to the house, so there was a nice level of privacy. A week after I moved in, I met the maintenance guy. I'll call him Patrick. He seemed to be gardening and came over to introduce himself. Seemed nice enough. I found out he's Denise's brother, and he looked to be in his late 40s or so. Found him to be a bit awkward, but I've been raised to be polite to a fault, so I ended up talking to him for a long time before going back to my room. I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember he kept saying things like I was very beautiful, and describing my skin as exotic and caramel more than once, which rubbed me the wrong way. A few days later, the cleaner comes also. She is super lovely and has known Denise and Patrick for a long time. She and I had a nice chat, and for some reason, she brought up that Patrick was on the autism spectrum. So to me, that explained his awkwardness, and I realized he's harmless. So I felt bad about my initial judgment of him. Next time I saw him, I came out of the kitchen and saw him standing there. This struck me as odd. 1, it was a morning, and I was in my pajamas, having just woken up. 2, he's the maintenance guy. I didn't understand why he should be inside, but I still felt bad, so I just smiled and said hello. He turned and seemed startled, but explained to me that he was just taking out the trash. I saw that he had replaced the bins in the kitchen, so I was just like, oh, okay. He was trying to be nice, I guess, but I told him he really didn't have to do that. He just kind of insisted, and I was like, alright, whatever. Ended up talking to him again. Again, he seemed to have a weird fixation with me being exotic, even though I told him I was born in Australia, but mostly he was just generally asking how I was finding the place. And he reiterated that everything was super safe, and for some reason brought up the keys to the bedrooms. He said only me, Denise, and he had keys. I didn't say anything out loud, but in my head I thought, wait, since when does he have a key? But I still just kind of brushed it off. Cut to a few months later. I work about 4 to 6 days a week, casual, as well as going to uni 4 days, so I'm rarely there during the day, and lock my bedroom door before leaving every day. I don't remember exactly what time of year this would have been, but I know it was cooler and I hadn't used the ceiling fan in my room for a while. I got home, unlocked my bedroom door, and the ceiling fan was on. This struck me as odd immediately. I knew I hadn't turned it on in forever. I was very, very confused. I thought that I'd turned it on while leaving and just didn't remember. I brought it up with my roommate and she just kind of shrugged and said that's odd, but didn't seem weirded out by it, so I figured I was overthinking it. Note, I kept to myself a lot, wasn't close to any of my roommates, and only talked to this woman occasionally. A few weeks later, I'm leaving for work, and I have a very strange feeling while walking to the front gate of the house. For some reason I turn around and I see Patrick hiding behind some bushes staring at me. As soon as he is caught, he turns and pretends to be gardening. In the meantime, my mind actually kind of went blank. I was like, surely he wasn't watching me. All I did was frown and wonder to myself why he would stare at me like that, and then pretend he hadn't been. I come back later in the day, unlock my door, walk in, and again, something is off. But this time I can't put my finger on it. I stand in my room, looking around, staring at everything in the room, but I can't find anything. When I realize that I don't know what I'm looking for, I feel creeped out and leave my room and tell my roommate again that I thought someone had been in my room. This time she sat down with me and basically said she thought someone went in her room recently too. We chatted and she said that she had left her bedroom window open when she went to work, and when she came home it was shut. I brought up the fan again and my roommate said, maybe we should let Denise know. So I texted Denise and said something along the lines of, I think someone's been going into my room because of X and X event, and my roommate said the same thing. I exchanged a few messages with Denise, but the general response from her was, oh wow, that's so bizarre. Again, being super naive, young, and too polite for my own good, I assumed that I was overreacting and didn't want to seem like a bad tenant. Thankfully, it turns out Denise was more sympathetic than I realized, because she was going to have the locks changed the next day. I was like, yay, thanks, and assumed that would be it. But in my head I was thinking, only 3 people have keys, me, Denise, and Patrick. So if someone had been coming in, wouldn't it have been one of us 3? Which is why I didn't feel good when Patrick showed up the next day to change the lock himself. Being the maintenance guy and all, I ended up leaving while he did the change. Got a text later saying it was done and the new keys were in the mailbox. Fast forward, I had now been at this place for nearly a year. By now I was aware that Patrick seemed to come over about twice a week, and he always came inside the house to take out the rubbish, but never seemed to really do maintenance work. I chalked it up to Denise giving him a job because maybe he couldn't find one elsewhere, and I tried to avoid him. As far as I remember, nothing else seemed strange until now. I came home from work again and walk into my bedroom. While I'm getting my clothes to shower, I had noticed something very, very strange that was definitely not there when I left. There was some whitish-pale gunk kind of splattered upwards on the wall and the floor. Honestly, my first thought when looking at it after a while was like, that looks like donut glaze or something. I leaned closer to it, but didn't really register what the stuff was. Only that I definitely hadn't spilled anything there at all. So again I got creeped. Went to the kitchen to grab a Chucks and wipe it up. When I had a thought like, wait, is that semen? I really didn't know what to look for, but as soon as I had that thought, nothing would convince me otherwise. And again, my door had been locked. Only myself, Denise, and Patrick had keys. My roommate wasn't home, but I called Denise right away. She didn't answer, so instead I messaged her and said basically, someone had been in my room and there was some weird stuff splattered on the wall. I wanted to see if she came to the same conclusion I did. Her response this time was really off. She messaged back hours later and was dismissive. Said something like, very bizarre. The lock has been changed now. And I was like, yeah, obviously. So who do you think could have been in there? So I felt weird and grossed out that I went to a friend's place and messaged my stepdad about it. I told him everything from the first time, and I guess it sounds a lot worse all at once. Because his response was, hell no, you're moving out of there. I called Denise and told her I was going to move out if the issue wasn't taken seriously. This is when I realized that the leasing situation at this place was dodgy. Which I didn't know beforehand due to lack of experience and no sense to ask. Essentially, there was no record of me actually being a tenant, and I was kind of just sending money into this lady's bank account, but there wasn't any official paperwork. I looked back over the stuff I'd signed when I initially moved in, and it was typed up by Denise, I assume. I don't remember details, but it wasn't official at all. Super naive. So I was able to move out ASAP. Denise didn't put up a fuss about the short notice. When I came back the next day, the stuff on the wall was gone, so I didn't have any proof of what happened. But that just kind of confirmed to me that something weird was going on with Denise and Patrick. My stepdad helped me take all my stuff. I didn't have much. Denise just left a message and said, please leave the keys on the counter. It took me a few weeks to process every creepy thing that happened throughout my stay and put it all together as a massive creepfest. My roommate left soon after. Months later, she messaged me to say one of the old housemates told her the police were called to the place. Don't know why or what happened, but I suspect it wasn't for the tenants. Patrick, Denise, let's not meet. 3. I've been followed a few times this week, but this one came the closest. I really need to get back into Taekwondo or check out the Jiu-Jitsu club near work. Anyway, here's the encounter. Pretty sure someone tried to mug me again. I was walking past a church across the road from Frankston Primary, and this ditzy woman in a pink hoodie, with the hood up in an attempt to cover her face, starts dancing around and clapping. She was obviously stalling to get behind me, so I made a show of my J5, a super bright and very small heavy metal torch, and she hesitates a bit before getting out about 10 meters behind me. Just then, the police drive by in a divvy van and wave to either me or her, and she's suddenly vanished. Honestly, I think I really lucked out because I should have crossed the highway or turned around when she started stalling. I'm super lucky the police drove by again and recognized one of us. I could have stopped when I noticed her stalling and shined the torch on her, or told her that if she gets within arm's reach, I demonstrate what a beveled iron edge can do. But that would just escalate things unnecessarily. She was sizing me up as a threat and decided when I didn't react to her clapping and erratic behavior, it would be better to try and sneak up on me. Thankfully, the police around here actually do their jobs. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 459. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you have a story yourself you'd like to send in, then please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. All that wonderful information's in the description. Right, this video will be going up on the 30th. That means tomorrow is New Year's Eve. As I've already recorded tomorrow's video, and I don't think I mentioned it, I'll do it now as we head into New Year's Eve. Please do be safe and careful. If you like to have a drink, then don't drink to excess. Just enough to have fun, eh? Make sure you've got a way of getting home. If you're going out, best to stick with your friends. And keep an eye on your drinks while you're out as well. You know, I think we've told enough frightening stories on here that we know it's a bad idea to leave our drinks alone because, well, we should be able to have fun with abandon out there. The fact is there are very bad people in the world, and we need to be mindful of the awful things they might do, especially on New Year's Eve, when people are vulnerable. Okay, no more lecture, I promise. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.